Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Metroid Prime Remastered. In the last part, we finished off our business in Chozo Ruins, for now taking care of Flagara in the process, and we walked through the Magmoor Caverns in order to reach the Phendrana Drifts. Well, let's see, we just finished off exploring our first visit to the fire area. I wonder if, based off the looks, if this is our ice area for the game, kind of a rarity in some regards for Metroid, now that I think about it, until recently. I love the music in Phendrana so much. It's so pretty. So, while it is the ice area for the game, there's not a lot of actual ice mechanics we have to deal with here. If anything, it's more of an aesthetic shift than anything. And I think if there's any way you could get here before getting the Various suit, I think you'd be taking damage right now. I think. I've actually never tried, and I'm sure if someone has, I just haven't looked it up. So we had to scan that panel I did a moment ago because the door directly above it is locked otherwise. If you haven't gotten the sealed door scan log yet, make sure you do that. Speaking of scan logs, you might remember during the incinerator drone fight I said there's a point in the game where there's like 5 to 6 missable scans in a row. Phendrana Drifts on the first and second visit are those places, so you're going to want to make sure you grab as many scans here as you can while we're here. For instance, I think the baby Sheegoth here eventually does become missable, or at the least it moves into a different room. Those enemies, they're weak mostly in their back. We'll be taking care of some of them down the line. I'm, again, mostly ignoring enemies because I got other things to do. I got items to grab. I got rooms to be in. What's kind of rough about Phendrana, though, early on in the game, is that there's a lot of items you can see in here but cannot grab because you don't have the abilities to get them yet. I think it's the most blatant with it out of any area in the game. Ice Burrower enemy right here, missable scans, so make sure to grab them now if you're going for all of them. They get replaced, I think, after we get the power-up 3 ahead of ourselves right now? No, 4 ahead of ourselves. So make sure to grab those as early as you can. Kind of a neat thing about these Bombu enemies, by the way. We can't destroy them yet, but if you charge your beam, they'll be drawn to you, and when you're near one of them, the screen gets all staticky. That static is not an individual texture, it is the game's code being rendered into plain text on screen in real time, and I find that's a really cool solution to that idea. So the two things I just scanned, the Stalactite and the Ice Shriekbat, are two of the most notable missable scans in the game, because the Ice Shriekbats are only in this room, whereas the Stalactite are in limited amount, just like the sealed doors and blast shields. Better to get them as soon as you can so you don't miss them. So the kind of rough thing about this particular part of the game in terms of its structure is we're kind of going back and forth to extremes across the map in order to get just one power-up at a time, and it's kind of tedious on a repeat playthrough. So many creatures suffer beneath the blight upon the land, and we Chozo are no exception. But for all of our pain, we can at least believe in the promise of a future. We have come to believe that a time may never come when we can once again open the door and banish the darkness we've contained. Even so, our vigilance will forever remain. We believe that on some far-off day, a savior will come and continue what we have begun. For that savior, we will leave our ancient weapons and armor. The soul who can gather them will be the entrusted one. The only being who can reverse the evil that grows here. And that's the explanation for why there's power-ups littered all over the place. At least there is one, even though I never really mind gaminess, like things just being placed all over the place. I just find that kind of funny in a lot of cases, honestly. So we scan that panel that moves these platforms into place, and we can go up there and grab our next power-up. And it's one that Prime completely created. By and large, most of the power-ups in this game aren't new ones, but you got a couple of new ones here and there throughout the Prime trilogy that I think are really neat, like this one. This is the Boost Ball. Hold the L or B button while in Boost Ball mode and or Morph Ball mode, and you will start to glow. And after a while, if you let go, you get a gigantic speed boost forward. So this is actually the fastest way to move in the game. The Boost Ball can also damage some enemies in some versions, I think. It's not always an attack. But you can also use it in half-pipe formations like this, in order to gain some pretty good air and get up to platforms you couldn't otherwise reach. I really like this power-up. So now we need to think about where we've seen half-pipes. If you are paying attention to the level design, two should immediately come to mind. One in Tallon Overworld, one in the Chozo Ruins. We're gonna hit up both, but the one we need to hit up is the one in Tallon Overworld. This is why I think this part of this game is kind of weird, and that you have to go all the way towards the current end of the level design we can reach, and then head all the way back to the start, and then we're gonna have to come all the way back here again anyway. It's a little weird, but I guess every Metroid game has something like that in some regard. Right, kinda forgot we were here to chase down Ridley. Well, I'm sure we'll deal with that eventually. So coming up's how we're gonna start handling backtracking from this part on, just about. Especially if it's level design we've already been through multiple times. If there's no items I'm gonna be grabbing on the way through an area, we're just gonna speed it up if it's just pure backtracking. For instance, like I said, we need to get back to Tallon Overworld. So we're going to speed our way back through Magmoor Caverns because there's nothing that we're going to be grabbing here at the moment. This does slightly get into my slight problems with this game's world structure, in that in like Zero Mission, Super, Fusion, by and large, every single area in the game is connected to at least 2 or 3 others. By and large, most areas in Metroid Prime are only connected to 1 or 2. In fact, Phendrana, we'll get into this problem more later down the line, that's only connected to Magmoor, and that causes a lot of problems when it comes to getting into it. Same with the final area we have yet to see overall out of the main core areas. And admittedly, for all my problems with Metroid Prime 2, they actually got it right there, because every one of the 3 core areas connects to the main hub area as well as each other through some other methods, and I like that a lot. And now if only I found other parts of that game fun to play. More on that when I eventually reach Prime 2. So we're not speeding up the Chozo Ruins here because, for one thing, you get to see just how much the boost ball can speed us up here. But also, the first of the 2 half-pipes we've seen already is on the way. Admittedly, out of all the half-pipes in the game, it's the one that definitely took me the longest to notice, if only because my brain interpreted its roundness as just being a part of the terrain and not a half-pipe. It's right here in the center of the core room of the Chozo Ruins. And if you look right up on the left side of the screen, you can see the next power-up. We got a missile tank here. Or missile expansion. I'm really on and off with calling them missile expansions or tanks now that I think about it, just period. I think I tend to call them tanks, if only because in a lot of the other Metroid games, it's just missiles and energy tanks. So my brain probably interpreted it as them all being called tanks. It's kind of weird. Now, the power-up we're actually going after right now is one of the funniest ones in the game to me, because it's the one I mentioned last part, having ways to get, no matter what version you're playing, very early, even though none of them are intended. Compared to the 2D Metroids, where there's some amount of sequence breaking usually programmed in there, the Prime series is very walled in on what they want you to do. Yeah, at least in terms of the major pickups, those are very walled in order. Some expansions for, like, missile tanks and all that, there's, like, 1 or 2 ways you can get them technically, and there's some items you can get before you're supposed to know they're there, and I'll be showing off some of those as we go through overall. But for main expansions, like, the only way you can get them out of order is by either taking advantage of a few weird physics glitches, like the ability to do sort of a triple jump by using the bomb jumps and unfurling a certain way, and using collision that's not working the way it's meant to, usually, especially in the original GameCube release, where there's like some pillars that have collision that probably shouldn't, the way they do at least, or there's tree branches placed in a bad place that you can just jump up to and all that. Prime 1 speedrunning is a lot of out of bounds and using collision that's not meant to be there. Either way, we're now back at the gunship because right behind it lies our next power-up, one of my favorites. The space jump boots. This isn't the traditional space jump, which allows you to jump infinitely, though, because doing that in the 3D game would be absolutely absurdly broken. Instead, it's a double jump. And it's one that gives you a lot of horizontal distance if you're moving when you start it. So, jumps you didn't think you can make both horizontally and vertically now are very possible. This is easily the most important item to get in the game when it comes to sequence breaking the original. By scan dashing, especially in the GameCube version, you can just get off to the side so quickly. This light seems to be giving off low levels of radiation. No matches found in Florida or Fauna databank. Huh, weird. And there's a lot of blue around here in Tallon Overworld, isn't there? I don't know what's all that about. Despite me streamlining this playthrough overall, this is the one way I'm going we don't need to go to for a while, just to give reasons for the things I do down the line, if that makes sense. More on that in a minute. I love that atmosphere. Welcome to the impact crater. We don't need to be here for a long while, but we got a new pirate data here at least. Log 10.308.0. Field team reports are in on an aged structure of alien design. Built on the surface of Tallon 4, studies show this structure projects a containment field. This field bars access to a prime source of energy within a deep crater. Science team believes the field is powered by a number of strange Chozo artifacts. We found some of these relics and studies on them have begun. As this field could hinder future energy production operations on Tallon 4, we must dismantle it as soon as possible. And this means the destruction of the Chozo artifacts. It will be done. I really appreciate the pirate logs in the Prime trilogy. For one thing, especially if there's some of the side computers you analyze, they can get kind of funny at times. But also, they make the space pirates feel like an actual threat rather than just nameless aliens. More lore. Throughout our living nightmare, as we battle with this unyielding darkness, we Chozo see a light. This light glows of promise, chasing the shadows cast by the great poison and purifying that which has grown toxic. It is strange, though. At times it looks to our eyes as if the light coalesces into the figure of a woman. Burning brightly, the luminescence descends from space, then retreats back into the infinite blackness from whence it came. When this prophecy comes to pass, when the light recedes, the Chozo's long vigilance of containment will finally come to an end. Containment is right because of what this area is all about. More lore! The containment of the great poison. This task has fallen to the Chozo, and we will not flee from our duty, even as we suffer with the land and its creatures. We will pour our will into the 12, the artifacts which formed the locks that holds this great evil at bay in the depths of the planet. This lock must stand up to all who might come to assault it, to preserve the power of the seal and protect it from those who would meddle for their own purposes. We will spread the artifacts across the land, hiding them from prying eyes. The lock must never open until the day comes when this disaster can finally be put right. So I guess this great poison's also the great energy that the space pirates are detecting? Interesting. Ooh, I love this song. It's so pretty. Oh, this thing looks different. This is a Chozo artifact. Collect it, then scan the totems here for clues on the locations of the remaining artifacts. Together, the artifacts will open a path to the center of the impact crater. This is the Artifact of Truth, the first of 12. And in order to finish the game, we need to find all 12. This is a game-long key hunt, essentially. And if we scan all of these pillars, we get more scan books that tell us where the other ones are. There's a tower within the ruins where light always shines. Move through the waters there to find the artifact of Life Giver. Translating Chozo ruins. Within the ruins of our home, we honor our fallen elders in a great hall. A chamber beneath the statue holds the artifact of World. A sun chamber high atop our ruined home became the nest of a great beast and a source of corruption. Many Chozo spirits have been drawn to this tainted place, release their bond to the world to reclaim the artifact of Wild. Notably, you don't need to scan all of these for the logbooks. The Heat of Magmor was a test for many warriors. A shrine in their honor holds the artifact of Strength. In one of Talon's far corners, a grove of life lies. Reveal the pillar beneath the waves to find the artifact of Chozo. You get these logbooks just by collecting the artifacts in particular, so you don't need to scan all these. I'm just doing these for the hints to show them off. Invaders have claimed Phendrana as their own. A tower sits atop their fortress, collapses to reveal a chamber where the artifact of Elder is held. A tall cave sits at Phendrana's edge. Seek the unseen entrance at the top to find the artifact of spirit. And I think there's 2 other heads you can scan here, but I don't remember where they are, because you only get like 10 hints there, unless you need to get more artifacts back here to figure out where the other 2 are. So, those hints. Like I said, you don't need to scan them. You get those scanned just by collecting the artifacts to begin with. But each of those hints gives you a word that's differently colored that refers to the name of the room the artifact is in. And the hint itself hints at the method at which you get them from within that room. That's why if you look at the map, every single room has a name. So you need to just kind of piece things together from there. The artifacts, you're technically not meant to get these until the end of the game, but you can get a large number of them along the way if you know where to look, even before you have the power-ups, technically, that shows you where they are. I don't mind them too much in this game, but this being a Prime series staple, I've always found kind of weird, because it's the only thing that this series does that's distinctly different than the classic mainline Metroids. I guess in some regards it's not too different than the statue in Brinstar and Super that you need to beat all the bosses to get past, but it's definitely structurally a little weird. Definitely I prefer the artifacts to the Sky Temple keys in Prime 2, but I think the best way they ever handled this was the power cells in Prime 3, because there are 12 artifacts in this. You need to get them all to beat the game, but in Prime 3 there are 10 power cells, but you only need 5 to beat the game. You can find a lot of those along the way as well. So we're going to have to keep our eyes out throughout the game and get all of them while we can. But now that we have the space jump boots, we need to head all the way back to Phendrana. Annoying? Yes. But oh well. And I'm speeding up as much as I can, but I do want to showcase some new stuff along the way. Now we have the space jump boots. We can actually take a couple of shortcuts here in Magmor Caverns as you've already seen, but easily the most notable, you don't need to go into that morph ball tunnel anymore. Good. And as you may have noticed earlier this part, those bugs under there were giving me some problems, so that's especially good. I think the only playthrough I saved all 12 artifacts for the end of the game, though, was just about my first playthrough. If only because I was way too focused on other things to notice the door near the gunship. Like being scared of certain areas and not progressing for several days. Because we're coming up on the first time in the game that I actually really got scared. I know I brought up this game is a little intense for kid me at times, so I guess my mom was right at the end of the day, in retrospect, but there was a couple of particular areas that definitely scared me. And it's weird too, because Prime 2 is probably the scarier game in that regard, but I guess because I didn't play that until like late middle school, early high school, it just didn't have the same impact. Because I didn't play Prime 2 until the trilogy release. And I forget if that was middle school or high school at this point. I think that was like 2009 or 10. Because it wasn't the same year as Prime 3. I think it was like a year or 2 later. Before we head into Phendrana, though, I want to take a quick detour up to here. I don't need to do this until later, but I might as well, because first off, I can scan this boost ball spinner device, which, the way these work, you get them in a morph ball form, then you boost, and it causes something to get affected. In this case, it makes that platform rise over there. But also, I just want to grab this item here to showcase that, yes, you can get things in some slightly different orders. This does mean I'm going to need to backtrack to the room I'm going to down the line, because there's something else we can do in there. But I don't care. It's such a quick backtrack, it's not going to really impact things. Because in here is our second artifact. I don't remember which one this is. Is this the artifact of strength? Every artifact is weird, though, in that it both counts for a scan book and an item. Whereas most of the item power-ups you get throughout the game, you don't need to scan, unless it's like the actual item enemy pickups. Keep in mind that Bendesium stuff there, by the way. That's going to become very common. But yeah, to talk about the hints for the artifacts, if you look back at the one for the artifact of strength, it talks about the heat of Magmor was a test for many warriors. A shrine in their honor holds the artifact of strength. The room we just got that in is called the Warrior Shrine. And the word shrine was particularly highlighted in that, so look for details like that on the map if you're doing this completely blindly. It can be a bit of a process to look through the maps of the game for all the artifacts, but thankfully something good about the map system in this game. Not only can you access every area's map from the map screen, even if it's not one you're in, you can scan through the rooms you've been through for their name, and I think if you have the map room for a part of a region unlocked, you can even see the names of rooms you haven't been to yet as a potential hint. With that, though, we're back in Phendrana because there are a lot of power-ups we can now grab here now that we have the space jump boots. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 5, we're going to be going deep exploring Phendrana drifts now that we have these, and seeing what we can find. See you guys then.